Hey guys, got my coffee here. Today I'm going to bring you something different. You're about to meet Michael, one of our top W2 Prison Break Nation members, who went from stuck and aimless to over 15 million views on Instagram in under 2 months. No ads, no expensive tools, just pure strategy and commitment. Michael transformed his passion into a business, going from drifting for 5 years to building a community that's blowing up daily. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how he did it without spending a fortune or losing his sanity. We're going to break down the key steps, how he chose his niche, what strategy he uses that got him 15 million views, and his exact daily actions to stay focused and keep the momentum going. If you've been stuck wondering how to launch your business, this is going to be your playbook. So if you're ready to see how Michael did it and how you can too, let's get straight to it. Michael, welcome to the show, buddy. Great to have you on.
Thanks, Brian. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And I'm announcing this for the first time. Nobody knows, it's not even you, but I'm no longer doing interviews on the show except for people who are inside of W2 Prison Break Nation. So it's only members in the community who have launched businesses and me. So this is the first interview I've done in a while, and I'm glad it's you.
Excellent. I'm happy to be here. Happy to help.
Yeah, of course, and you are, and we're gonna talk about some cool stuff today. So we're recording this episode on October 30th. About 5 months ago, on May 20th, you messaged me on Instagram, and let's talk a little bit about what Michael was doing 5 months ago, what your life looked like, maybe some of the challenge that you have, just so we can give some context to the listeners about your story, because your life is much different now.
It is. And one, just again, thanks for having me here. And I'm happy to kind of share the story as far as where I was versus where I am. 5 months ago, I was drifting. That's sort of the best word that I can find. I was aimless. I wanted to do something. And I think in our earlier discussions I had shared with you that I was toying around with businesses for probably the better part of 5 years at this point, toying around, playing with various ideas, and I always just either ended up not going through with it for any number of mental roadblocks that I could have achieved for any single one of them, right? But where I was in May, I was finally kind of at a moment where I needed to either take action or find some way of improving my financial situation that I saw kind of coming down the line, right? I knew I had a little bit of roadway, I knew I had a little bit of lead time, and I needed to figure out something to get moving on so that when the troubling times or the shortfall was going to happen in terms of my finances, that I was at least going to be on the way to building something that is going to ultimately change my life and take me out of potentially take me out of my W-2,
Mm-hmm.
which is the end goal here. As far as like my family and everything like that, like I've with all of everything that I've had personally going on between my son's special needs, my personal challenges with my son's mother, and all of the stuff that goes on with that kind of life, being engaged and marrying my best friend. It was just kind of a whirlwind to take on all at once, but it was one of those moments where I simply had to do something. And sitting by and watching the pitch go by, so to speak, wasn't going to be for me. I needed to really step up and take action to find a path that I knew that I could go on for quite a long time, and in order to achieve success on my terms and not on anybody else's.
Yeah, awesome. A couple of things you said: toying around with different business ideas, side hustles. I think all of us have been guilty of that, myself included. One of the things that you had said to me in that conversation was that you overthink everything. You talked a lot about your son. You talked about a lot about your family. What was the maybe was there one specific thing, or maybe it was a couple different things that made this time different? Like, okay, this time I'm going to make a decision. This time I'm going to commit. Talk about what that process looked like. For some people, myself included, you only got to do it for 5 years. I did it for like 15.
Yeah, and I'm probably in, as far as like seriously considering business and a business for myself, it's 5 years. But I honestly, I didn't really delineate when I stopped, playing from when I was out of school to from working part time to finally getting a first full time job and so forth.
Yeah.
I've probably always had in the back of my head these ideas to try and build something for myself. But what changed was obviously the financial situation that I needed to figure out, kind of a longer term solution for. And two, I think it was just seeing what you had achieved and seeing what was possible and simply deciding it literally was just me making a decision that I'm worth it. This is an investment that I can make for me. And I'm going to ensure that whatever I do, I'm going to make sure that this investment is not a failure. And I think once I needed to put skin in the game, which I've never done before in any real capacity, I've bought, woodworking tools. I've never bought courses or anything like that, but I've done a lot of consuming of knowledge, and it was the first time that I was actually putting out, real money, right, for something that I needed to in order to achieve that,
Mhm.
because I had this realization of like, listen, I've been doing this for seriously for 5 years. I've been playing around with different ideas, toying around with everything that you could possibly imagine, everything from woodworking to drop shipping to copywriting to anything, right?
Yeah.
I'm very much a jack of all trades. I know a little bit about everything, but I don't know enough to put it all together and actually make it into a cohesive project that was going to be of value. Or at
Yeah.
least I talked myself out of the potential value that it was, because, as you mentioned, and as I said, I overthought everything. I figured out all the reasons why no one would want to work with me in that capacity. And I constantly discounted my value without really ever fully giving it the try that I needed to. But this was the time that I put my marker down, I put skin in the game, and at the end of it, that's where I'm at, and that's what led me to where I'm at today.
Yeah. Guys, remember what he just said? Because we're going to get into this in a bit about him thinking that nobody would ever pay any attention to or want to work with him. So you're going to hear how he completely turned that upside down on its head and then some. So what I heard was putting skin in the game for you, and then you kind of had this back against your wall moment, right? It's like you're at the end of your rope. That was how it was for me. That's how it is for a lot of people. And some of us need to just get to that point, right? We have to be at the end of our rope and our back needs to be against the wall. And we do have to have a bit of a leap of faith. All right. So you come in, we start working together. You're in W2 Prison Break Nation. By the way, guys, Michael is he's probably the top member in the group. Like, he's the most engaged. He shows up to everything. I teach this. I've been taught this, and I do the same thing. It's like, if there's 10 steps in the program, which there's more than 10, Michael does all 10 of them, not six, not seven, not hey, I'll think about, like, even he resists some of the stuff, he still does it. So there's that leap of faith and there's that trust that he has. But he understands that doing some of these more challenging things that maybe you wouldn't want to do, that you resisted on, is really, really important. I'll stop there and just let you comment on that, because you did fight me on some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to doing the stuff that I don't want to do, it's not that I don't want to do it. It's that, who wants to do stuff that's hard? No, people want to take the easy way out, and and I was no different. And until I realized that I needed to change my mentality around what I needed to get done, they turned out not to be so difficult. They just turned out to be small incremental steps, and you need to take one after the other because you can't skip ahead. There's lessons in each step, and there's lessons that you learn as you go. And when you realize that every little piece of it has value that's going to build up to everything, that's that's where it is. It may
Yeah.
not be comfortable, but we don't grow when we're not. We don't grow when we stay in that same comfort zone that has gotten us the same exact thing time and time and time again. I think it was Einstein who said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If you don't do something different, you're not going to get anything different. And to be different, you can be better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you said it way better than I did. So thank you for that.
No problem.
Who wants to do stuff that's hard, right? Yeah, that's a really important point because sometimes we can do things that are difficult for a short period of time. I think it's okay. I've done this for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's like, yeah, can I do it every day? Like, can I do it for months or years at a time? And I think that's where the majority of us flame out is the
Yeah.
longevity of it. All right, we're gonna go ahead.
Don't get me wrong. I have bad days. I don't show up every day. I show up to a lot. I'm probably 95%, but you know, my Monday this week absolutely kicked me in the rear end. It has absolutely nothing to do with me not wanting to. It was, circumstances and so forth.
Yeah,
Is it in my control? No, but my response to it is. And that's where taking those little steps, even when you have a regression or a bad day, okay, so you just missed your one little repeatable step for that one day. Guess what? You can make it up the next day because you have that power, you have that ability.
yeah. And I believe that would you say that's one of the things that's different between now and prior to the 5 months? Would you say that's different? Just maybe just your attitude towards, hey, the world punched me right in the nose today. I'm going to handle it this way versus maybe you handle it in a different way 5 months ago.
I think, again, for me, I mean, I'm used to the world bopping me in the nose. It's happened a lot the last 10 years for me. And I've learned a couple things that one, we can only control ourselves and we can only control our actions. And it's led to such a peace of mind to not be stressing over what we can't control. And two, by understanding that it's these little steps that all lead to the larger journey, to the bigger prize. It means that if I take a punch in the face, well, that's just one day, or it's 2 days, or it's a week. In the grand scheme of things, there's 52 weeks in a year. If I'm going to let one week out of 52 really throw me off, then there's a bigger problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah.
And that's where, for me, the difference is realizing I don't have to make up all 52 weeks all at once. I can
Yeah.
make I can make small incremental adjustments and changes, and I can get where I want to be because, I've been my social media platform has only been around for 2.5 months, and it's gotten to where it is now. I've not been perfect. I've not had, everything that I've committed to. Sometimes I miss on posting content or creating content. Something comes up and is in the way or something like that. But just missing that one day doesn't mean I need to just throw the entire thing in the bin. I'm able to simply come back and say, hey, it's good. I'm fine. Monday was one of those days. My follower counts were still going up. People were still reaching out to me. And I think I even had, someone join the community. This is inaction doesn't mean that everything stops. My business still has that same inertia that even though I'm not continually putting into it, it may not be going as fast, but it's still turning, it's still going, it's still out there, and everything is still going to be fine. And
Yeah.
that's the difference from 5 months ago to now, is that everything is going to be fine. I've got this thing going. It's good. I don't need to worry about one day. I need to worry about a larger chunk of time. I need to worry about, I see that thing in the distance, and one day is not necessarily going to ruin that for me.
I love that. I love that. All right, we're going to get into good stuff, but I just want to re-emphasize the point that you made, just for all these who missed it, is that 1 week does not define your year. And unfortunately, a lot of us will hang our year on like one negative event or a handful of negative events or a week. Michael just said, "Hey, I'm not going to chase the other 51 weeks trying to make up for one bad week." It's like, you just got to let it go. So thank you for pointing that out. That was beautifully said. That'll probably be a highlight in the episode, I'm sure. Okay, getting to the good stuff. You've got this Instagram channel. It's absolutely going off. One of my favorite things to do is to check this guy's Instagram every single day, because it's amazing. But let's talk first about what it is, how you decided on your business, because that's one of the things that we do first and foremost, is like, hey, let's do what we know or what we're good at or what we'd love to do. And you found like the perfect intersection. So talk about the how you decided, and then what you did, and then we'll talk about some pretty cool results because they're just amazing.
Sure. So, from a personal standpoint, I have loved the game of soccer for as long as I can remember. My brother played for his high school team. He was a varsity player at his freshman year, and that really kind of got me way into the game, and I enjoyed it. I simply put, I enjoyed it. I played from rec league up to club league when I was a teenager, and just sadly, just as a state of the game goes, I suffered a pretty significant ankle injury that I didn't know it at the time, but would affect me greatly and affect my ability to play. I also let just life happen, and I just decided, okay, it's time for me to quit playing because now I need to be, I need to grow up and get a real job and so on and so forth. But what happened side along with that was I discovered that when I was 15, I had this crazy schedule. I needed some way of making money to be social with friends and so forth. So I picked up refereeing. So I figured, I know the game. I know how it's played. I can go out and run a few games and walk away with, at the time, it was maybe $30, $40, depending on the level of the game,
Yeah.
and back then $60 wasn't something to sneeze at for a teenager. So these days I've dovetailed that, and I've stayed with it through many difficult years, through many different difficult challenges. I did put the whistle down for a little while when my son was born. I did, when I was in school, I didn't do nearly as much as I could have been doing, but that's just the hindsight of it all, right? I should have stayed with it. I should have done more, but I've picked it up even harder now in the last 10 years or so, that I've really been enjoying it. I've been invited to regional tournaments, invite only regional tournaments, I should say. Not just anybody can get to these. And so the quality of my officiating has been noticed, which isn't necessarily to, pump up my ego or anything like that, but it was just something that I realized that I was passionate about and that I was good at. And when we started working together, we're, kind of going through those steps of, what don't you want? What do you want? And all this stuff. It really started to become evident that I need you say it all the time. The best business for you is the one that you'll stick with, is the one that will have the roadway that you can stay with. And that's what refereeing was for me. And when it came time, I realized, I'm like, wow, my 20 years of officiating has value. It's, people are needing it now more than ever, because referee roles are down, and people don't want to deal with the abuse. They don't want to deal with, the negative sides that everyone knows with youth sports officiating and so forth.
Yeah.
It's not just soccer, it's baseball, it's basketball, it's all over the place. And that's where I found, hey, instead of just me being the one out there with the whistle,
Mhm.
why don't I just try and help people be better referees so that they can stick through those hard years, those hard games, those hard seasons, and actually stay with it, so that we start to solve this refereeing crisis from a quality of official standpoint, and give people better games and give people the confidence to stay in the middle of the field and not be rattled so much. So that's
Yeah.
where the Instagram channel, or that's where the community came from. The idea of building a platform where there's positive, constructive learning for grassroots soccer officials, and that's where the referee circle came from.
Awesome. And I love it. And okay, so you launched the referee circle. It's amazing to hear how confident you speak about it now, because even when we were going through it, it was still a little bit of, I'm not sure. And now you're damn sure, aren't you?
I'm positive.
Yeah.
There's so many things about it that make sense that
Mhm.
I think a lot of people stop and they wait for, official permission, right? Because every state and every state has a soccer referee committee, and
Mhm.
sometimes there's even two or three, depending on the state. Like California, I think has three or four, and they're all broken up by regions. And so the mentorship and the ongoing learning and all of this stuff is controlled by these referee committees. I don't see why I can't learn from a referee in Florida, or why I can't teach a referee in Virginia or Kentucky or California or Texas or whoever, wherever. The game is the game. Even internationally speaking, there's going to be some differences, sure, from a cultural point of view, maybe from a language barrier kind of view, but realistically, the game is the game, and the laws are written by one global body. So how I interpret it might be different from somebody else, but realistically, we're coming from the same manual, so to speak. So there's no reason why it needs to be so segmented, and
Yeah.
that's one of those things that I'm trying to address is in terms of positive, constructive feedback, mentorship, and how we just get better. And there's no reason why it needs to be so segmented like that.
Agreed. Agreed. I mean, I've learned so much about soccer just from interacting with you for the last 5 months. But do you have your iPhone handy?
I do.
All right. So what I'm going to ask him to do is open up his Instagram account and go to his metrics. And I want him to share how many views he has in the last 30 days on his Instagram channel that he started probably 2 months ago.
So 2.5 months ago. That's the official. I actually had to look up the
It's
date
two
in
and a half
preparation.
months. Okay, got
So
it.
August 16th is when I launched it at 1
Yep.
p.m. I won't. It's almost to the minute 2.5 months ago.
Wow. Wow. 1
Um,
p.m. He knows the time.
well, I know you made me commit to a time when I launched it.
That's right.
Um, from October 29th to September 30th, I had 15 million views.
15 million views.
15 million views, yes.
Okay. And how many followers do you have on your Instagram account to date?
I have 4,662 from September 29th to September 30th to October 29th, representing a 1,300% increase.
That's pretty wild. Okay, guys, for context, okay. Then we're going to talk about how we did this, but for context, your gracious host, Mr. O'Neill, has about 31,000 followers on Instagram. It took me probably 2.5 years to get those. In the last 30 days, I have 233,000 views. So I am absolutely getting smoked. And it's not just me, it's a lot of people. And Michael is getting a lot of attention from other people being like, hey, man, how are you doing this stuff? And I want you to talk about your strategy that you're utilizing to get all of this attention. Number one, you're in a niche that's popular, but I think other people can still do this, right? In terms of how you're able to pull this off, because you are posting a lot and you're having this like meteoric growth. So talk about the strategy, and then everyone is definitely going to want to check out the referee circle. That's your handle, and you can see exactly what he's doing. And I think it's brilliant.
So yeah, so to be completely and totally honest, before I even considered this, right?
Mhm.
I'm on a shoestring budget, so I don't really have a ton of money to do ads. I pay for a few software things here and there just to make things just a little bit easier and better for me based on what I'm doing. With that being said, I wanted all of my traffic to be as organic as possible because I want the mission of the referee circle to do the talking and not necessarily just a glitzy ad or anything like that. So
Right.
my strategy was with absolutely a thimble size amount of experience with social media prior. I don't post what I eat every day for on Instagram or anything like that. I'm not like that. But my strategy for growing this was simply to educate. That's it. Bring the laws of the game, the laws of soccer, to a wider audience by simply breaking down clips and plays that other people are putting out there. I'm just remixing or in some cases sequencing certain content where I'm seeing that there's a different perspective to be putting on it, whether it's a challenge, a tackle, a good play where the referee does well, or very fewer times where I'm actually pointing out mistakes, because oftentimes I'm finding clips of adult amateur games or top level youth games where the referees are basically like me. I have a day job, I go home to a family, and I cook dinner. I'm not constantly churning through and going through, ongoing learning sessions the way the pros are. I'm not
Yeah.
going through assessments all the time and that kind of a thing. So I'm taking these clips of these kinds of referees and I'm pointing out what they're doing well. And I'm pointing out the nuances of what's being called and what the referee is doing through this sequence, even if it appears that the referee's not doing anything. Right.
Mm.
And so that's where a lot of people have started to grasp on to this concept of looking at what could be just a regular mundane clip of a penalty shot or a penalty kick in soccer, or the way a referee gives a red card, or the way a referee gives a yellow card, or the way the linesman, the assistant referee, is moving and what he's seeing and what they're doing and how they're communicating from the AR to the center referee, because we don't get the technology, we don't get the microphones. It's all eye contact, body language, and mechanics at that point.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a huge gulf of knowledge around that kind of stuff, which is why the content I'm putting out there, I think, is so successful. And there are some controversial takes, there are some controversial opinions. Refereeing and soccer in general is very popular, and it's also very subjective. So it's going to draw out a very passionate, opinionated crowd, and that just only helps because I'll give my take and then I'll get challenged by 20 other people,
Yeah.
and I'll go back and forth with them for a little bit, but then I kind of just let the rest of it go. So that's really the larger content strategy, is just to educate and really use these clips to point out what's actually going on from the referee's perspective, and it's taken off like crazy.
It really has. Okay, from a tactical standpoint, because people don't know the words not everyone knows the words that we're talking, right?
Sure.
Remixes and sequences, nobody knows what that stuff is. So your strategy is simply you go and you find clips that other people have posted on Instagram, and this is totally legal, guys. Okay, and then you do what's referred to as a remix, which is you are basically just putting your own text on the screen without speaking over it. Like this is a faceless type of a situation for you where you're just commenting, right? And you post those. And how long does something like that take? First of all, am I correct? And how long does something like that take you to do?
Yeah, no, it's partly finding the right content. It's me watching something and saying, what's going on here? I ask myself, is it obvious to the lay soccer enthusiast?
Mm-hmm.
Two, is this something that other referees would benefit from knowing as well? And three, sometimes, even if it's obvious to other referees, I'll still put it out there because, people want to interact with content that they agree with a lot. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of that goes into it as well. So finding the right content, figuring out what spin, quote unquote, I can put on it, and then it's exactly right. It's putting, text over it. I sometimes change the audio depending. There's more often than not, I don't. I suppose I could talk over some of these, but largely I don't. I simply let the audio and the text do the work. Because prior to all this, when I consumed Instagram, I typically have the audio off. I don't actually listen to whatever audio is there simply because I'm not always able to, right? There are a few that I've found that sequencing is better because the explanation is maybe a little bit more granular, and you gotta like talk through it, and I can't quite boil it down to just text on screen. Um,
That's
but
giving your verbal commentary. A sequence is where you would
so
give like a verbal commentary.
Right. So sequencing is where you watch the clip first, and then I would record my face saying something. So it's not completely faceless, but
Mhm.
I would say that a majority of my most popular posts, the two that went up over, I want to say they're both up over 6 million views now, was just a remix of my opinion, text on screen, and that's it.
Yeah. You definitely have one over 6.5 million for sure.
Yeah. I know.
'Cause I have it up and I'm looking. So, which is, I mean, how does that, like, what does it do for you? Like, seriously.
I, I mean, it's crazy. I'll be the first one to say that, and I don't say that lightly because like like what I'm doing is not hard. It's not difficult. You asked how long some of this takes. The finding the right content is the longest part in many ways. I'll go through and I give myself usually 30 to 45 minutes of just scrolling Instagram a day, and what I'm doing is I'm just saving potential content idea clips into an album on Instagram, and
Mhm.
then that's it. I'll go back through that, and as I'm looking to make two or three pieces of content, I'll go through and I'll say, okay, I could do that. Okay, I could do that. And I'm reviewing it. It doesn't take very long. Sometimes, it's maybe 10 or 15 minutes
Mm.
per clip at this point in time, especially if it's a little bit more nuanced. Usually I can get it done within 5 to 10 minutes. And then I write the caption just separately on my laptop or something like that. And I'm able to copy and paste it and schedule it. It's usually no more than an hour or two a day or an hour or two to get, maybe a day or two of content out there. So
Okay.
it all,
That's
it all
helpful.
just depends on what the content is.
And you're posting like how many reels a day are you putting out there on average?
Uh, I'm closer to 3 a day right now.
Okay. So an hour or two to get a day's worth of content, which is, that's normal, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I've found efficiencies. I've definitely found efficiencies as far as getting the right content, kind of breaking up the content search versus
mhm.
putting it together.
Yep.
I used to do find the clip, make the clip, save as a draft, and then have to come back to it.
Right.
Now I'm able to better manage the process and the time, so it's probably even faster than what I'm stating. Worst case scenario, it's an hour or two to get maybe 5 or 6 total clips done as far as that goes. So maybe it's an
Okay.
hour for 2 days of clips.
Got it. Efficiencies, time blocking, all that good stuff, and just
Yep.
actually doing it. It's not that difficult once you apply yourself. So we're talking a lot of roses and rainbows in here.
Sure.
You got some challenges. So let's talk about what, and you've overcome all these roadblocks. It was like, hey, I didn't know what to do. I was kind of toying around. You overcame that. Then you decided on the business, and then you had some mental blocks there about, well, I shouldn't know, what am I going to post, and then you've got that going. So
Hmm.
now what's the thing that's kind of, what's your new brick wall that's in front of you, and how are you attacking that?
The new brick wall is post. I have so because I'm so focused on the education,
Mhm.
my brick wall is the blatant self promotion, right? The blatant marketing, and I struggle with that in the sense of kind of in that same imposter syndrome sort of way, right? That, it's one thing to make content and to have people watching what you make, right? It's
Yep.
then another thing to be able to use that content as a funnel over to something else that eventually I hope to monetize in the coming months. So there's this battle between I want the education, out there, and I want people learning, but I also want people to see that it's a value and that it's worth money in order to go ahead and build this. And that's been my latest struggle, is just being able to consistently post the link to the school community, keeping people aware, like, hey, I have this really cool community. Because ideally, I don't want people to see me as the end all be all source of knowledge, because I know I'm not. What I want people to see is the value of having a positive and constructive community to come in and to talk about issues like this. Because as much as I love Instagram and as much as I'm loving, 15 million views, there's a lot of people on there who come in with just this really negative energy, toxic kind of stuff, club loyalties, depending if I bring like a specific, if I mention a specific clip with two professional clubs or something like that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of noise in there as well. Beyond, it's great for my engagement, it's great for views, but
Sure.
it doesn't necessarily fit in with the overall mission of just being able to give guidance and education to new and inexperienced referees,
Yeah.
and to be able to build that platform to give them a positive place for them to come and do that. That's the reason why I'm not doing it on Instagram, and it's why I'm doing it over on school, because it's a little bit easier to control, and I can say people are in the group, people are not in the group, and that's where that value comes in for me.
Got it. Okay. Well said. So you mentioned this phrase that we talk about all the time in the community, which is imposter syndrome.
I knew you were going to pick up on that.
Yep. And it is no it this isn't by chance that I happened to post earlier today. It's about, I'm going to read it to you, and I'm going to ask you to comment on it. So on Threads, I made this post about 5 hours ago. The best cure for imposter syndrome: stop saying you have it. Labels are dream crushers. Your words matter.
So I have been living that mantra of how you speak about yourself will manifest itself in everyday life. And I agree. First of all, yes, I can't agree with that statement any more than I already am. Um, it is one of those things. If I constantly talked negative about myself, if I constantly talked about negatively about an idea, then this isn't, that wasn't the idea, right? That wasn't it.
Yeah.
And for me, once I flipped it around and I started saying, I'm like, well, wait, why, how can this work? Right. It started to remove a lot of that term that I won't repeat because it's going to get me in trouble. No, I mean, for me, the self promotion piece is more about a lack of confidence in the value I've created so far,
Hmm.
and that I still need to do more work there. However, at the same time, I still see that I've created something that is of interest and that does have value. Obviously, as people are joining it, that's people wouldn't be joining it if it had absolutely nothing to give other people, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I completely agree with that statement, though, is that if I'm constantly talking negative about a thing, a quality of mine, like, of course it's never going to improve. I'm only going to focus on that, and it's never going to come through it. And
Hmm.
that's part of the reason why, again, moving from Instagram into school means that I'm going to be able to block out the noise, block out the negativity, block out the toxicity that unfortunately is so associated with a lot of referees these days, and that where we can kind of dovetail that back to that positive, constructive aspect, so that people can actually express a concern or express an opinion or express a viewpoint, and not expect and not be attacked for it, but instead to have a constructive conversation and constructive feedback around it. And I think the negativity is what will kill everything before it even has legs to go.
100%. And it probably has done that for you for a long time until now. And we'll always have that. Like the little voice on the shoulders is always going to be there,
Yeah.
especially as you get bigger. I mean, when you your account, I think I told you, 10,000 before Santa Claus comes to town. That's looking pretty good to me. Probably then some. But
can happen
I
overnight at this
it
point.
could it literally it has happened overnight. But
It has.
what are some of the things that, because we talked about all these things like toying around, like overthinking, analysis paralysis, imposter syndrome. Yes, I'll say it. Like, just what do I do next? How am I going to get leads? How am I going to get? I mean, it hurts my brain just to even say all that stuff.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think it's a lot of the what business do I start? A lot of us who are listening, probably our brain feels that way. Like, hey, I gotta slay all these dragons all at once. So for the people that are listening, the people who are thinking that way, like they haven't started, they're you 5 months ago, they're me, maybe 5 years ago, they're me 15 years ago. It's like, what do you say to them? Like, what's the advice that you would give them?
That's a great question.
I know.
The the one piece of advice that I would give is simply believe in yourself and take action. If you don't take action, nothing will change. An object at rest will stay at rest. An object in motion will stay in motion. And this momentum that you get by simply putting one foot in front of the other day in and day out is going to get you further along than trying to find a silver bullet business idea by far, right? You give it enough time, you can achieve anything with whatever idea you want, but you have to stick with it and you have to stay consistent. And that is where I think so many people, and that's where I was falling down because I kept on, I could do this and I would do it for a week or two and then I would fizzle out. Do this week or two, fizzle out, right? Don't get me wrong. Some of those things are passions of mine. I like getting out into the garage and, making a little wood project, but
Yeah.
I don't want my life to be making little wood projects. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily the passion for me that did it, that is the magic bullet. It certainly helps to be passionate about something and for it to have a purpose. That's certainly true. But for those people who were me 5 months ago, 5 years ago, if you don't make the decision to have the faith and to take the action and be consistent with it for at least a period of time to realize like, hey, it's working, tracking what those steps are and seeing the progress over 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, etc., that's where you're going to find the magic. Even if every day doesn't feel any different, over the course of 3 months, you will be a completely different person.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. It usually doesn't. The days usually don't feel any different. They're kind of the same. There's not. We're not really doing much different than what we would do in a 9 to 5 job tactically, right? We're still doing work. It's just this, like you said, it's this faith and this taking action, which you hear that all the time. You just got to take action. It's like, it's got to be harder than that.
Yep.
It isn't.
Think about it riding a bike. You don't do anything unless you push the pedal.
True.
It's you, and yeah, you can coast, but you have to take the action to get going for a little bit. Then you can coast a little bit, then you can pedal some more, and then you can coast a bit, and then pedal more. It's not 100%. Um, it's not going all out every single day, right?
Yeah.
It's little repeatable motion, it's little repeatable actions that you can get. That if you can just do these little things just every day,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get there.
Got it. I'm going to ask you one more
Sure.
difficult question. By the way, when guys say that's a great question, that's code for I don't know the answer right now. I need to think about it. So that means it's a hard question, which is exactly why I asked them. But Michael did a great job answering the question. So I'm going to ask you a hard question. I want you to point to one thing. I want you to do the best you can to point to one thing that you've added to your life over the last 5 months that you're consistent with, right? That has really made a difference for you, right? It doesn't have to be the thing, just one thing that you've added that's really gotten you to this point where, I mean, you're on one of the best podcasts going right now.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
The one thing here, how about this? I'm gonna tweak your question a little bit. I'm gonna
sure.
say the one thing that has made the biggest impact on me.
Yeah.
That's what I would say because
Yeah.
I've added several things, whether it's my own personal confidence or better use of time, time blocking, that kind of stuff that I'm still not great at. By the way, I'm still working on that, but I think everyone works on that for until they're 6 feet under.
Yeah.
But I would say the biggest thing that I have that has made a difference for me is just tracking my daily accountability. So, and I'll explain a little bit what that is for anybody who
Knew you
doesn't
were going to say that,
might
by the
not know
way.
that.
Yeah, keep going. Knew he was going to say that. Knew it. And we did not talk about that. But yeah,
We
go ahead.
didn't. We didn't.
Everybody points to this, guys listening. This is the word. This is the thing. Go ahead.
So within the larger Prison Break community, and when I was working one on one with Brian, my I had I we would text each other daily, and I would say I'm going to commit to doing X, Y, and Z every day. And at the end of the night, whenever that night ended, which for me was typically very kind of late, I would send the text to Brian, and he would respond back to me, usually very early. And it was just that accountability, that piece, right? And now I do it within the larger W2 Prison Break community, and it's for me. I report on what I did yesterday, so I do it in the morning,
Mhm.
and I wake up, I kind of check off what I did, and I post it, and it helps me. It helps to keep me moving in the right direction because I don't want to say that I committed to doing something and I didn't do it. I felt like I was miserable on Monday. And I was miserable Tuesday morning when I had to post that I had a miserable Monday. And it wasn't my fault, but I'm not going to make excuses either because we can roll with the punches. But at the end of the day, I didn't feel great. So what did I do? I made sure Tuesday was an amazing day, and it was. I committed to 4 things. I nailed 4 things, got them done. None of them were astronomical, nothing huge, but needle movers to move myself forward, my business forward, my family forward. That's all I needed to do. Those 4 things. Maybe it's 2 things. Maybe I know I'm having a busy day, and so I know that I'm going to have to do that. I have at least 2 things to get done. Maybe it's 3. It's going to vary depending on the day and the time and the place and so forth. But that has been the single greatest piece that I've added over the last 5 months that has made me so much more consistent and so much better in terms of being able to achieve what I've set out to achieve.
Yeah,
And that's where the value comes in.
it's huge. And the guy hasn't missed, folks. He hasn't missed in the 3 months that we worked together one to one. He didn't miss a day. He doesn't miss a day inside of the group. And it doesn't take that long. This is probably a 2-minute exercise, right? It's just thinking about it. Like, hey, thinking about needle movers, thinking about your win, thinking about what I'm doing tomorrow. But it's 2 minutes, right? Does it take longer than 2 minutes?
It's honestly 30 seconds because I copy and paste it in a note on my phone, and I copy and paste and I move down the next day.
Yeah.
When I get to 7 days, I delete the previous 7 days so I don't have to scroll as far. But
Unbelievable.
it's easy, it's repeatable. You just keep the same thing and you just keep going.
Keep going. And yet people don't do it. But this is the thing that everyone points to, guys. Everyone points to this thing, accountability. This is the number one thing. It's boring. It's not sexy. You wouldn't think it would make a difference, but it makes all the difference in the world. You add it to your life changes, period.
Well, it's one of those things for me that it's motivating for me to see other people and what they're doing, right?
Mm,
So I want to pay it forward. I want to be able to share what I'm doing because that's going to inspire somebody else in the group, right?
yeah.
I'm passionate about people getting motivated to referee. I'm passionate about helping them advance if they want to advance. I'm passionate about wanting them to get better.
Yeah.
Realistically, posting my accountability is no different. It lets me deliver on my promise as being part of the community. And then it also reinforces my drive to continue helping others, refereeing or not, does not matter.
Yeah. Beautiful. I know I said last question, but we're going to ask another one because we're on this accountability kick, and then we're going to wrap up. This has been awesome. So, what are your goals? We're recording on October 30th, so it's the end of October. We got 2 months left in the year.
Okay.
What targets do you have for your channel, for your community? Like, what are you looking at in terms of numbers? Like, what are you trying to get to? And this is as accountable as it gets right here.
Wow. Oh man, this is the gauntlet being thrown
Yeah,
down a
I
little
mean, I
bit.
already gave you one, but I think you're looking beyond that. What are you thinking? What are you thinking by the end of the year? What are you trying to get to?
I mean, but I would like, and I'm in no control over this, but I would like to get at least another couple pieces of viral content out.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see. I mean, you're saying 10 by Christmas. I've seen the follower count kind of dip off a little bit, but that can just shoot regardless. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm probably a couple hundred on a good day. It's a couple hundred these days. Maybe it's 50 on a slow day.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say for a follower count, I would seek to maybe get up to 15 as a stretch goal by the end of the year.
Yeah.
That would be my ultimate stretch goal. There are a couple other creators out there. One of them has been doing this for 2+ years. And I've noticed that he's starting to copy my content style a little bit.
Yep.
But he's only at 39,000 followers. I'm not using him as a benchmark, but at the same time, like, he puts out some really compelling stuff, some really compelling things as far as content goes. So I think 15 in the next month and a half, 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
might not be that unachievable, given the broader context of the niche. As far as the community goes, I would love to see that I get up to 50 people in the group by the end of the year, and to really develop, to really be able to put the Instagram strategy on automatic, or as automatic as I can, and then put a little bit more effort into cultivating the broader group and the broader community together.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. Okay, guys, any of you who are remotely interested in soccer or learning how to light it up on Instagram, please go visit at the Referee Circle. It's been fascinating to watch. And if you want to get around Michael, you know where to go. Check out W2 Prison Break Nation and give us a test drive, if you will. All right, buddy, you did a great job. It's been a pleasure working with you. And I'm so glad I only had to remind you like 7 times to book this podcast episode.
I'm busy. What can I say?
Yeah, he's a busy man. He's got 15 million people looking at him. So, all right, good stuff. Everyone, make it a great day.